So I don't think I have a single profile, but here's a few things to keep in mind. One is I think there is this thing about connection to the problem, which matters a lot. Like in the professionalization of startups, we went from a world where people who were doing startups were doing them because like they had to see it in the world. They're like so passionate about it. It was like the only thing, it was like their reason for being. They had some like personal reason why like they were overly obsessed about some specific small thing, right? Like, or a specific thing, period. And like no one else cared or whatever, but they were like super obsessed with it for whatever reason. That might be, and so like I think that personal connection is good. What's happened is, and this is part of like again with professionalization of startups, is you now have a bunch of people doing things from startups that like they're pretty good business ideas, but you're like, do you even really give a shit about this? Like, I know it's a good business idea, I know it's a good pitch, but like, why are you doing this, right? Like, I sometimes ask myself this question. It's like, why am I working on fin analytics? It's like, do I have a really good reason for it? It's like I have a reason, I have a self-justification for why I'm interested in it. And like it's partially about like I am kind of obsessed with measurement and back to like my Bain days and da 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 da. I also really, really believe in like that productivity is the only way forward, right? Like for the American workforce and things like that. So I have this like high-minded framework about why analytics and measurement is like the central thing that must happen with technology to like keep the world working well. But it's like it's not like it like massively deeply affects me in some personal way. And I do think that if it did, it would be easier, right? And like I think this, so I think there's like a whole thing where it's like you have to like I think be introspective first with yourself, but is like, is there a really good reason I'm working on this? Because if it's just like I think it's a good way to make money, it's not impossible to build successful companies, but it's harder, right? Like it can't just be, in my mind, I think it's really hard for it just to be about money. Um, and then I think the psychology thing is like, look, you know, there's being a startup founder is kind of egotistical, right? Like you are going to have to go through all these things where like convincing people to work with you in hard situations, and like you have to be resilient enough. Like there's all this. I mean, I'm a huge believer that like grit is the most important thing. It's like, have you been knocked down before, and will you get back up? Because there are plenty of people who like are great on paper, but like if you knock them down, they've never had to stand back up. They've been so successful in their lives that like they just have never experienced failure, and like they don't know what it means to come back from that. And like if you're starting a company, you're going to fail at shit, and you're going to break shit, and you're going to get sued. There's going to be all this shit that's going to happen in your life you have to get through, right? And like you just want to know what people are like when that happens, right? So I don't know. It's not like I have some like the things I say is like people who are like complete overachievers and have never failed at anything, and they just have gone from success to success, and they have pristine resumes. They're usually not great startup founders, right? You know, but again, like it's really personal and it's like a hard thing. It's kind of like the question about how do you learn about, you know, managing enterprise deployments on blah, blah, blah. It's kind of like part of it is you need to find people who have just done a lot of it. And then two is like you just have to do a lot of it yourself to learn firsthand and pattern match about who you, and then you're going to be wrong a bunch, right? Like even once you've done all that, like again, early stage investing, like most of the time you're wrong.